Thank you, Al. A great conference so far, and I think this session this morning is going to be very, very interesting. We have two people that I think are more in touch with owners and programmatic customers than anyone I talk to. The title of our session is, how happy are customers? And I do some research with private jet card comparisons annually with our subscribers. We get about 600 responses, and mainly programmatic customers. And so out of people who are in programs, so jet cards, memberships, fractional ownership, 44%, and this is the most recent survey from last summer, said that they're considering changing programs. If you look specifically at people who are in fractional programs, 29% of the folks that respond to our survey, at least, who are in fractional programs, say that they're considering changing programs. So begs the question, how happy are these people? How good is the service? And so maybe I could start by asking both Craig and Emily to give a little introduction to themselves, and then for the people in this room who aren't familiar with what they do, maybe talk a little bit to start about what you're actually doing, your businesses, because the word consultant is used a lot in the industry, a lot of very good consultants. But describe, maybe we'll start with you, Emily. Describe your business, maybe give us a little background about what you're doing before you started your company.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Emily Williams. I come from IWA, a company I co-founded with Nicholas Imrie 10 years ago. We are independent private aviation advisors. We work with clients to take a whole-of-market approach to their flying across ad hoc charter, program fleets, fractional ownership, and whole aircraft ownership. As I said, we're completely independent, so we take no commissions, no incentives. We're not affiliated with any program or operator. And we're one point of contact for all our clients. So we do everything from negotiate and execute contracts with all the big fleet providers like NetJets, Vista, Flex, JetFly, as well as work on their ad hoc charter needs direct with the operators. I started at NetJets, where I met this handsome fellow. So I was the board sales director there for many years, and Nicholas, my co-founder, also came from there. So yeah, delighted to be here. I think, our whole goal in life is to make customers happier. That's how our business developed in an advisory capacity. So I feel like we've got a lot of good, interesting data on that as well.
Craig?
So I started almost 25 years ago at NetJets and cut my teeth there for 10 years across the four main categories of flying. We had clients that had their whole aircraft managed by EJM, worked closely with the fractional owners. I was the chief operating officer of the card division. We had our charter clients with EJM, and it was a real interesting time when I entered the business, because I was like, wow, it's not as good as I thought it was, which was quite shocking from a client perspective. And there was a survey, going back to Doug's surveys, we used to give a survey, and it would say, do you find our product a good value? And 80% of the responses said no. And then the next question was, will you be renewing? And 90% said yes. And so, do we consider those happy clients? I mean, me, no. NetJets, yes. And so, I worked every day studying client behavior, obsessing on how to make the client happier, and over time did develop a system that when I left after 10 years to start Aviation Portfolio, which in IW Aviation and Aviation Portfolio run sort of mirror sister type companies. And I use that. We exist to make the clients happier. I mean, at the end of the day, and I know we're going to get into that a little bit more.
Yeah. And so, Emily, you would be focused more on Europe, and Craig more on North America. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And so, making clients happy, that sounds like a good thing, especially when you're dealing with well-off people. Maybe to help the audience out a little bit, Craig, give a couple examples of what you're doing that makes customers happy, what they're actually paying you to do.
Well, I think, look, everyone in the industry, whether you're Embraer in the OEM, Stephen talking yesterday, whether you're a NetJet rep, whether you're a charter broker at Air Partner, everyone wants to be the trusted advisor. But ultimately, you have a conflict of interest in what you're saying. And so by being the truly independent trusted advisor, you take this mentality of, I hope I'm doing it right, I hope they're telling me the truth, to I know. And that in itself is very rewarding for the client. What we do specifically for the client depends on who they are. Is it a whole aircraft owner? Is it a fractional owner? Is it a jet card owner? Is it a charter flyer? It could be as micro as double check. This is crazy, but double checking that the gluten-free catering is, separate from the gluten. It could be, hey, this client has a part of a fleet in the super mid category. They want a door shut off from the crew, and most of the planes don't have a door shut off from the crew. It could be they have a fleet of G450s. They want one that has Starlink. They all don't have Starlink. It literally goes down to that level of detail. It's insane.
And so are you working with your customers on a flight-by-flight basis then?
Flight-by-flight basis. We are their expert but advocate. We know what they want. We are relentlessly, fighting is not the right word because we treat the operators and jet companies like a partner, relentlessly fighting to get the client what they want so that they're happier at the end of the day.
And we'll talk a little bit more about the mix of business, but versus where a broker may be doing that with their clients when they're booking the flights, you're working with people who are all, in addition to, we'll get into the full ownership, you're working with people who are already in programs, right? So they have a program and they're hiring you to make sure that everything goes correctly?
Yeah. So almost every client that hires us already owns their whole aircraft. They've been with NetJets for 20 years. They've been chartering with Air Partner. But there's something missing. At some level, they don't feel 100% taken care of. And so we're just filling that gap so that they can truly enjoy the experience and not feel like they're getting effed when something goes wrong.
And Emily, any examples of the type of things you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis that helps improve the experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two sides to it. There's the, I'm flying privately, am I doing it in the best way? Should I do it a different way? And I think what we do is we start that advisory piece much earlier. So we really understand what they're flying, how they're flying, which fleets and programs might suit them best. And then we map it all out. And we're showing all the economics compared one to the other, but also the operating profiles of each of them. And you won't be surprised to hear that very rarely is it the most economic option that is, in fact, the right option for the client and they're flying. So on a day-to-day, we're working with all the different fleet operators, laying out the analysis, kind of deep financial analysis, but also sort of operating preferences. And obviously going over 10 years, we manage 50 million euros of flying across ad hoc charter and fleet programs every year. We've got a lot of knowledge. We know what operators can and cannot deliver. We know where the levers to pull on certain proposals are to get the customer best value for what they need. So that's kind of going on a day-to-day. But then we're also executing the actual flight. And our mantra in our business is to deliver on time, deliver as experts, and deliver the extra. And that's what all of our flight managers are trying to do on each and every flight. And really what that means is getting the client better information, quicker information, and de-risking that flight. The whole reason people want to fly privately is to fly on their schedule, to make things quicker, better, more private. It's all the betters and the mores, right? And if the client's not getting great information, then it becomes more risky. You're sitting in the airport for longer. You're diverting to airports you weren't expecting. So we're constantly checking weather, NOTAMs, calling operators, calling towers, checking baggage, checking passport numbers, checking if they've got their UK ETA. We are a triple checking service for our clients to de-risk the outcomes of their day-to-day flying.
And so you would sort of sit between, if they owned a plane, the management company, or if they were in a fractional or jet card program, you guys are sort of sitting between the programmatic offering or the management company and the customer, right?
Yeah.
To sort of make sure that everything's going correctly.
It's like we're in the client's office, right? And we say this to clients all the time. You could do this. You just need to hire 3 or 4 people that have 20 years plus of aviation experience and then run it for you. That's going to cost you several £100,000, dollars, and it's still going to go wrong. Well, for us, you can pay 20 grand and we're going to do all that for you, and we've got all that expertise. So we sit on the client's side, very much within their office, and all the outcomes are based on what they need.
And so what obviously when people get into private aviation, it's expensive, right? And for them, they can afford it, they see the value, but they're already paying a lot of money. Maybe talk a little bit about, if you want to sort of starting out what you guys charge, and then when they're coming to you, what's driving them to pay even more money for, to fly privately.
So, look, our business models are similar. It's a prepaid annual subscription. It's a flat fee. What's different between us and traditional consultants? We have no economic interest in the decisions the clients make. So, where some companies use consulting as a lead-in to make the real money on the transactions, we don't get paid by NetJets. We don't get paid by Solaris. We don't get paid by Air Partner. There's no conflict of interest.
Can you tell us how many zeros behind what you guys? If I win the lottery and I want to hire one of you guys, what am I looking at to pay?
Look, our fractional clients, again, it's right sized, but pay between 30 and 100 grand annually on sort of the fractional charter side. Look, we have people that pay less because they barely fly. We have people that pay $500,000 because they're insane. But you put the outliers aside, 30 to 100, and then our whole aircraft subscription clients pay about 100 grand.
And fair to say, similar fee structure?
Yeah, so we, thanks to Craig, so probably I should say as well, like Craig has been a great mentor to IWA, just as friends, but he helped us devise our pricing structure probably 10 years ago. And I hate to say, Craig, we've probably done a better job thanks to Craig's advice on kind of keeping it very clear. So we run a program or a charter model, and the idea is if you spend 25% or more of your time in the ad hoc charter market, we charge a slightly higher fee because obviously we're getting quotes in and then doing the full flight management for you. But we start at £21,000, and that covers up to 50 hours of flying or 12 months, whichever comes first, and it's just linear after that. Typically, when we do the analysis on an annual basis for our customers, we work out about sort of 5 to 7% of their annual flying cost. And a lot of our clients, when we put them into program structures, so when we're looking at executing NetJets, Vista, Flex, JetFly, they'll actually run our advisory service in line with their contract. So many of our clients are signed up for 3-5 years.
And so are they coming to you because they're already flying privately and they're having issues with their provider, or what brings them to want to spend even more money on private aviation services?
I mean, look, it's of course sometimes event-driven, right? It's not perfect, or again, they have that feeling in their stomach that, am I really doing this right? How do I know? There is no one else independent to verify. Their advisor has been their EA, Google, their friend, their family member, their colleague, and look, it's a very personalized purchase. And what's on a piece of paper, you can have the exact same aviation profile, and 3 flyers end up in 3 different spots based on what their priorities are. And most of these clients don't even know how to create their priorities. And so,
you're trying to make these clients' experience better. What are the pain points? We see the brochures and great salespeople in this industry, and it's the parents at the kids' soccer game and Fluffy's on the couch and everything is good. But what are the pain points for the clients that you're working through that you see coming up on an ongoing basis?
Well, it's such a big question. You can go so many places with it, but at a high level, I think the issues that we face in aviation, and this really goes to everyone in this room, there are 3 big issues that I don't believe are curable. And we run our business to improve these 3 issues, but they're not really curable for the vendor. And it's education, which has been a hot topic here throughout the past 2.5 days. Education, communication, and then this inherent negativity bias. So one, you have this education factor. The clients are not sophisticated at the level that everyone in this room is. And when you're not educated and you have someone who either thinks they know it all and doesn't need to be educated, they don't have the time to be educated, or they just don't want to be educated, you're going to end up with confusion and frustration. Period. You know, and that's on the and no matter how many resources the organization dedicates to education, training, et cetera, if the client isn't a willing participant and isn't engaged to learn, all those resources you dedicate to the education are a waste of time. So,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I'll ramble just for a second. So you got this, so for us, we come in and they do want to be, they're not afraid to be educated by us. They let their guard down. And so we're going to empower them to be smarter at dinner and on the golf course and when dealing with whatever situation, whatever vendor, whatever part of the ecosystem they're in. 2, communication, real tough one. So the communication skills in our industry are not strong. We've heard from other people, a lot of the resources at these organizations go towards sales and other more profitable areas, but how you communicate with the client is everything. And you generally have one dedicated point of contact. And look, these principals want one sort of point of contact. But if you don't know whether to call, have an in-person meeting, text, email, do it in the morning, do it right now, do it at night, do it next week. If you call and you are checking in or start rambling and the owner doesn't understand what the hell you're talking about, they're never going to take your call again. Bad first impression, or you waste my time and you're getting forwarded to voicemail next time, so you're lost. So again, we're trying to fill in that communication gap that, again, no matter how many resources the organization puts towards it, it comes down to one person, one account manager. Do they meet that moment when they have to communicate the right way? And then the third one, again, this one's, and by the way, communication's really hard. And it's not scalable because every owner wants to be treated differently. The third one is negativity bias. Right. Unfortunately, if you actually really look into it, the happiness factor may be 80-90%, but the feeling, because psychologically, those negative experiences and those negative moments are more intense and more memorable. It feels, these people, they feel worse. And for us, we come in and we can have a bit more of a rational conversation. You're doing great. You're beating the numbers. You're better than the averages. I know it doesn't feel that way, and give them that confidence to, get through that.
Emily, I'm going to switch a little bit. One of the questions we have on Slido, you guys are getting it sort of firsthand. Do you then give any feedback to the management company, whether it's the fractional or the whole aircraft management, about places that maybe they need to improve, and how do they take it?
100%. So in order to really be experts, to make customers happy, to give them all the options and on opportunities, we really need to understand the whole of the market, and that means being good partners with the suppliers, the operators, the fractional fleets. But it also means being really understanding and taking the time to develop a relationship with them so we understand their offering, what they can and can't do, where they can deliver better and worse than others. So certainly within IWA, we have a really strong policy about feeding back to our operators. In fact, one of our kind of metrics from a management and a leadership side of point of view is we look at the number of operators we use every year, and actually our goal is to narrow that down each year so we can have deeper relationships with certain operators, and we get special terms for our clients because of that. And the only reason we can get special terms is because we work well with the operators and we treat them with respect. We also have a really firm policy, and I know I sit on the board of the Air Charter Association, and this is something that comes up sometimes. There's a sort of a penchant or a kind of a repetitive cry of, I've blacklisted this operator, which I know is hated by many people. And what we often say at IWA is, if you've had a problem with the operator, we are absolutely not taking them off our provider list until we've sat down with them, talked with them, understood really what's happened, what we can do to make sure it doesn't happen next time, and give them another go. So we are very clear on that. But I know industry-wide, it's definitely a hot topic, making sure that we take the time to provide feedback both ways. I want to hear it too about our company and our team as well.
And Craig, I remember you showed me once as we were sitting at one of Al's conferences somewhere. I think you're showing me where the PA for one of your clients had a new PA, and he or she, instead of putting, I guess, PWK, the PA doesn't fly privately, had booked the flight to O'Hare Airport. And that was something that your folks caught because you knew that this person goes into PWK. So do you also then try and educate the client and the client's team about what, especially the team members, about what their principal is looking for too?
Yeah, 100%. We're educating internally always, and there's turnover. So internally and then externally, doubling down on what Emily said, we give constant feedback. Constant, direct, blunt feedback to the operators, and they listen. And we've done it 14 years now. We've got 14 years of experiential data on these vendors. These reoccurring patterns.
So you're seeing from your data who's on time, who has delays. What are you capturing? What are you?
Oh my God! So look, we at this point we have about 100 flights a day that we advise on. It's a lot of flights across many vendors. So we've got not just on time, but how do you communicate, and who's good on the holidays, who's good international, who's good on large cabin, who's good on small cabin. You keep going, and then look, when you talk about the biggest this is programmatic, not whole aircraft. The biggest complaints when I worked at NetJets were ground and catering. Right, you work so hard operationally to get the plan in place, the plane there, the crew there, and then ground and catering, third-party situations. Fast forward, Wi-Fi is now third. So ground, catering, and Wi-Fi are your three largest. So look, we help the vendor in that we tell the clients, it's not the vendor's fault. Yes, they hire the catering company that put the Wi-Fi on, but you got to cut them a break. So the vendor appreciates that we can explain when the de-icing truck is running late, it's not their fault because they want to blame someone. The other thing we help the vendors with is, on the vendor KPIs, they'll be like, hey, we were 99% on time. This was a perfect flight. What they don't realize is they've given our clients a concussion by smacking them in the face with, you may have a fuel stop, there may be an edict, there may be a TFR, your plane may have an AOG. By the time the flight goes off perfectly on time, sort of the fun was taken out of it. So we help them work at, how to do that better.
To the provider side.
Oh yeah, and we try to shield the clients from what we can.
And so if I was leaving from Scottsdale and I had an early morning flight to go to a board meeting in New York, and you saw my plane was being repositioned in Aspen, from Aspen, would you call the provider and say, get Doug another plane?
We're doing that all day long.
Okay.
And we're doing it in advance. We know there's going to be problems. We know if there's an important meeting.
And are they saying yes, we'll try? How's your relationship with these providers? Because
So again, doubling down what Emily said, they're in the U.S. there are 2,000 operators.
Right.
The majority of our work is done with 10 operators, then maybe 20. The max we'll work with is 40, unless there's a day of emergency and you got it.
And so someone comes to you, they're already with a program, a management company, if they own a plane, a fractional program, which, 5-year commitment, they have 60 hours or 30 hours left on their jet card. Do you ever, and you have the experience, and you're trying to make it better, but this provider, do you tell people, I can't really help you if you stick with this provider? Do you reject clients because you're like, yeah, this is too, this is going to be too stressful?
Well, we'll not take someone's business if they're like, hey, we want to pay 40% less with NetJets on our next contract. Our clients aren't coming to us. They don't want to pay a penny more than they should be paying, but they're not coming to us to find. They'll pay more for the right experience. They'll pay more if if we get them where they should be. They also would rather pay less if there's a way to accomplish their objectives paying less.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Emily.
I was going to say, like, that conversation actually, I think, doesn't even come up in that way, because by the time they've sought out an advisory service like IWA or like AP, they have lots of questions. So the first thing we're doing is doing a deep dive, a real audit of their flying and their contracts. And I can't think of an occasion where we haven't found a way to improve their current contract, whether it be moving to a different aircraft type, an interchange rate, changing their billing, prepaying. There's always options to improve your current terms and to make your contract work better for you. But it may also be moving a piece of your flying from one provider to another. So I think I can't think of a time actually in 10 years where the conversation is, I want to do the same thing for less. I think the conversation is, I'm not really sure. I think I've got some questions. I mean, we've just started a aircraft ownership project, and the client has been with the provider for over 5 years. I've had questions for a few years, they said. I just haven't got round to dealing with it, and now I want to deal with it, and I don't have the time to do it. So could you guys answer all these questions for me? Give me some suggestions. We call them suggestions in our business, not necessarily recommendations, because it's a suggestion. Here are the several options. Let's narrow it down to 2. It's your choice what you want to do, but we're giving you all the information in one easy way and palatable way to make your decision. I mean, these guys, men and women, by their very nature, are successful business people, entrepreneurs, big corporates. They've built wealth, and private aviation is both part of their business life and their private life. They know how to make decisions. They just need really good information fed to them.
One of the Slido questions is about digital, and we read a lot, digital. Click, book, clunk, I think is the thing. It's just like booking an Uber or things like that. Is technology helping? Is technology improving the client experience from what you're doing and the client end, as well as how you interact with both the clients and the providers?
I mean, I'm going to put like a line in the sand here. I don't think the end user in private aviation wants to book their flight through an app, wants to view things, change their catering through an app. I think most of the executive assistants we work with, if we were to create an IWA app and said, could you do everything through there? I think they'd rather shoot me. They really want that face-to-face contact. This is a high item spend for them. It's even not the total amount, but the sort of visibility it has in their day-to-day life. It's like their home, their car, their children. It's a really big piece of their brain and their thinking time. And I think that digital AI tech really works for all of us to deliver a better experience to the customer, but the customer, in our opinion, wants that one point of contact. They want that face-to-face, that WhatsApp, that phone number, those eyes to look into when they have questions.
You want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with everything Emily said, but I do think that the digital in the app absolutely does enhance the client experience for the easy stuff, the catering, the ground, the tail number. I mean, the amount invested in client service reps who handle, and again, this is programmatic, they're not very good. I mean, they're in their young 20s, they're very inexperienced, they can't answer tough questions. So I think the app and the digital enhances, you still need the in-person, and then I think when you move to the charter space, the Uber for private jets, which doesn't exist.
Right.
I think you drive right down into a safety issue, which no one likes to talk about. But any of these apps that exist, there are no standards.
Right.
The booking a charter, the instant charter booking, there are no standards.
So I want to hit something that I think is always a hot topic, at least on social media. You'll say if it's on clients or not. And I always say to our subscribers, I'm in the kiddie end of the pool. You guys are swimming out in the ocean, and we don't do a financial analysis. And if I had $1 for every call I got from somebody in the industry who said this company's about to go bust, I'd have enough money to fly privately and be one of your clients. Do questions from your clients come up about the financial stability and viability of providers? And how do you handle those conversations?
I mean, as I said before, our goal, particularly IWA, and I know AP too, is to, deliver as experts for our clients. So we have to have a level of expertise to give them that initial advice. And that means, Nick and I do our own investigation, reporting on it, asking questions. But we also ask questions in the areas that we have expertise. So when you're talking about a fleet provider, we will talk to the service centers. Are they servicing their aircraft? What do you think? We're representing owner aircraft too, so we have interaction with these groups as well. And so that builds our information. But what we also say to the clients is, here is our information, and we keep it fresh and current. But you probably have people in your organization who are better at measuring the financial health of a company than your aviation experts. So here's the information. We can help them as well, but they should take their own decision on whether the health of the company fits within kind of your parameters or not.
Greg?
What Emily said, if that works, ultimately the client may say, well, what would you do? Which is, that they're paying us for that. I think most of the companies in our business, you don't know what their numbers look like. You don't even know what NetJet number look like. But it's an insanely capital-intensive business to run. It runs on debt and credit. Nobody shows their numbers except for the ones that have to, which are, at the moment, for us, really VistaJet and FlexJet. They're out there for everyone. Make your own decision. And then those smaller, I'd be more worried about the smaller companies. I had a list at one point of about 500 companies that went bankrupt in our space, and I had saved the Wall Street Journal articles, the Wall Street Journal ads. During COVID, they were all in the garage. My wife made me throw them out. But those small companies are the ones you need to worry about, those South Florida.
You're in LA, so I won't make any jokes about where those files are.
My wife, I had to throw them out.
But by the way, are there any questions from the audience? Because I think we have 2 minutes, and this is what I wanted to do. This is why I came to London.
Oh boy, Doug.
Defensive back. I know there were several serious injuries when they were throwing this ball yesterday, but my question is, Emily, Craig, are you constantly going to your own customers and asking them if you've done a good job? And what are your ratings? What kind of ratings do you all get?
I think that is an excellent question. And actually, one of the things I was thinking about before we came here is it'd be fascinating to know how each of your companies measure customer happiness, and if they even do measure customer happiness beyond kind of anecdotal evidence. So we take it quite seriously. Our business has purely been built on referrals over the last 10 years, which is a good indicator of customer happiness. We also do a lot of work on the kind of raving fans model. So we constantly are looking for messages, phone calls with kind of effusive language about what we've done. That's only good enough for us. We don't want anything less. But also we spend a lot of time looking at our quiet clients, those that continuously renew, but we don't get a lot of feedback. We don't get, that was amazing, thank you so much, or that was horrible, I hated every minute of it, because I think often they are the ones that are most at risk, the ones that are kind of, it's fine. So we do a lot of work kind of measuring that, understanding that. I think by the very nature of what we do, we've grown completely organically. We grow every year, between 10 and 20%. So I think for us, that's a definite measure of happiness because it's all based on our network and referrals. But I would love to know kind of how people measure happiness in their organizations and if they even measure client happiness. And which level is that? Is that kind of the FBO you're working with, or does it go right up to that lead passenger and commissioner of that flight?
Since you guys are all about performance, we're only 1 minute late, so I want to say thank you very much, and we have an on-time departure. Thank you, Al.